A person is only as strong as their word, but every day, the world dares you to break it. Integrity with Red Shea is for the ones who refuse to do so. Red spent 12 years in federal prison because he wouldn't break his word. Now, he's talking with people who've done the same. From their battles, you'll see how to stand tall when everything around you falls. Because in a world hell-bent on destroying you, your integrity is the only thing that will protect you. This is Integrity with Red Shea.
We got a special guest today on the Integrity with Red Shea show. And I'm so happy to have this guy on because this guy here is a very special guy. This guy has integrity and he's made something of himself and he's never lost that integrity. Thank you, Brett, for coming on.
Absolutely, Red, man. Just like when I met you earlier, I said this is truly an honor and a privilege. I've been offered a lot of different collaborations to go on this podcast or that podcast since I've been out. And I've always struggled with who I wanted to make content with because just like you said in the beginning, a lot of those guys don't have integrity. That's why I love that the name of this podcast is Integrity.
So, Brett, I want you to start off from your earlier lives, where you came from, if you will.
Yeah.
And how you grew up and how you ended up in the place that you did, just like I did, in that special college that we both shared for many years, if you will.
Right, that's right. So, I was born in the Bay Area. I grew up there, and I always tell people I really came from a great family, We moved around a lot growing up, so grew up in the Bay Area, moved to Southern California, back to the Bay Area, Southern California, and then eventually, of all places, we moved to Nebraska. And that was really kind of like an inflection point for me.
Yeah, I would say so. Coming from the Bay Area to Nebraska, that's a tremendous transition.
Yeah, it was an insane culture shock. There was nothing to do. And, I always tell people, I'm a testament of you are who you are becoming, that we never just wake up one day, look around, and I'm like, damn, how did I get here? It's always like a slow bleed. And I'm sure you can relate to that.
100%.
So for me, started off when I was a teenager, like a lot of teenagers, I just want to smoke weed, right? And then eventually it's like, well, I don't want to pay for the weed anymore. So now I'm going to start selling the weed. And then around this time, and I've always had the entrepreneurial mindset. Because even when I was a kid, I was building websites, selling websites, different things of that nature. And I remember when the Silk Road came out, I actually saw an advertisement for it on YouTube of all places, right? I'm like, what is this all about?
Just for the audience, fill in what the Silk Road is.
Yeah, so the Silk Road is founded by Ross Ulbright, who recently got a pardon from President Trump, which was well overdue because his charges did not meet, and his sentence did not match the charges that they gave him. It's pretty much an online marketplace that's connected to the Tor network, which was like originally a Navy technology where people could trade things for cryptocurrencies.
Sure, yeah.
And when this first came out, we all thought, Bitcoin was untraceable, but it's absolutely more traceable than US dollars.
They say the United States has more Bitcoin than any country in the world, by the way.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I reserve that, yes.
Yeah.
They say that, yes.
So I remember I got on to Silk Road, and the very first purchase I made of all things, I saw they sold fake IDs. And they were from Ohio. They had the hologram. They were scannable. So that was one of my first little side hustles. I would go around school. I would get them for $100. I would sell them for $350. I would literally just take your picture with my iPhone, upload it, get the fake IDs. And then eventually, I was like, wow, I can import, entire kilos of MDMA. And I can order bricks of elazopram powder. And before I know it, I just went full force into.
So tell the audience about what elazopram powder is.
Yeah, so olazapram powder is the main ingredient in a lot of popular benzos like Xanax and Ativan and things like that. It's actually really popular in the suburbs among soccer moms, college kids, because, they say they have anxiety.
Is it kind of like in the Adderall family?
Completely opposite. Well,
Completely
Adderall is going to give you
opposite, okay.
super focus. Xanax and benzos just make you super calm.
Yeah, they slow you down.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, and this was a different time, This was before everything was cut with fentanyl. So we took a lot of pride, Even though I was selling all these drugs, I always took pride. I'd be like, we call these super bars. We'd put 4 milligrams of olazapram powder in each bar. So it'd be double the dose, 100% pure. And, we would just fill them up in vacuum seal bags, vacuum seal them out, sell them by the brick. So
you went into that field.
Yeah, I went into that field around the time I was 16 years old.
Okay.
So from 16 to about 18, everything just started to ramp up, and I was making more money than I even knew what to do with, right? And the problem at this time was that there wasn't a lot of liquidity in Bitcoin. So like a lot of times I would have to pay bills, and I'd have to go on this old website that they used to call Local Bitcoins. I don't know if it's still out there, but essentially you would meet people and you would give me cash and I would just send Bitcoin directly to your wallet and we would just meet in person. So I would literally have to travel to totally
I've heard
random
about
places.
This, yes.
Yeah, I would meet this guy at a casino, this guy at the grocery store, go to the Starbucks and just do whatever I can.
Some platforms take Bitcoin.
Yeah. That, and it would be dangerous, especially if I just wanted to go straight to like a Coinbase or one of these websites where they have know your buyer rules and laws where, you have to upload an ID and everything else. And that's just a quick way to, say, hey, look what I'm doing.
Right. So you furthered yourself,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
So let's get into that.
Yeah. So during this time, as you know, people get jealous, people tell on you. One of the things that I always tried to take pride in was that I didn't tell any of my friends what I was actually doing, right?
That's a smart idea.
Yeah, I had this side of me, which was forward facing to the world. And then there was the other side of me that was selling drugs on the dark web and, mailing everything out in the USPS, et cetera. But I do remember I made one fatal mistake. And that was when I had a friend and he's like, oh, I have this buddy who I go to college with and he wants a Bible, right? So Bible is slang for 900 hits of LSD because, each sheet is 100. So it's 3 on the bottom, 3 on the top. It makes a perfect square. So I'm like, okay, cool. Let's do it. So he does it and, then he does it again and again and again. And we end up doing 9 or 10 transactions. What I didn't know in this instance was that he was actually selling directly to the feds. But I was starting to pick up signs at this point. I remember at one point in time, I was actually on probation for something I committed when I was a juvenile. And I was at the courthouse. I was supposed to take a UA, but I'd never been one to follow the rules when I was younger. So I was even smoking a joint on my way to go take this UA and have this meeting. And what I would do is I would go up there, have the meeting with the individual, I would go down, and then because they were so busy and misorganized in the UA office, I would kind of just grab the sheet where you sign in and I would check myself off, right? And they never caught on to it. I remember walking out into the parking lot and there was this guy in an orange vest because it was connected to the jail. And he's like, hey, is this your car? And I'm like, well, what's up? What's going on? Is that your car? And I'm like, okay, that's my car. And he's like, I just saw an SUV pull up and they just put a tracker on the back of the vehicle. I was like, what? That doesn't even make sense.
Oh yeah, they want to watch you now.
Right. So I remember I was renting this space above an art gallery, a prominent art gallery in the old market of Omaha, Nebraska. That's where I had some of my front businesses. And I called one of my buddies and I said, look, man, I need you to meet me out at the lake. I think there's a tracker on my car, right? So I remember we go out to the lake and my first inclination is, okay, they'd put it like in the engine bay or whatever. So I remember going underneath the car, I'm looking underneath the engine, I'm like, where is it? So I sent my friend to the back and he's like, I don't think this is supposed to be here. And there was literally a battery this big with 3 big old magnets, a cord, and then like a big radio looking device with a big antenna with another magnet just underneath like the chassis or whatever of the back of my vehicle. So I'm like, what the heck? So I remember taking it off and I'm thinking, okay, what are we going to do with it now? I look across the freeway and there was all these semi trucks parked. So I said, dude, we're going to put it on the semi truck. So I drove over there, put it on a semi truck, drove off. And at this point in time, I was about 19 years old. I didn't even know who the feds were. Like, I feel like a lot of people, you don't even know who the feds are. You don't know the difference between state or federal until you get wrapped up into the system.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they followed that truck for a while then.
They must have been. They must have been.
Good.
But I'll tell you this, it didn't stop there. You know, I would see them taking photos of me, so I would like take a laser pointer and I'd be messing with them. They'd be following me and I'd be running red lights. And I just thought it was a giant game. I literally thought it was hilarious.
Well, you were young.
Yeah, and you think
You were young.
You think you're untouchable.
I've done the same things similar to that. I remember when they were following me, and I pointed them out, and I knew who they were. And there was one day they antagonized me, and they knew I had a hot temper. And I was young. I fell for it. And I jumped on the top of the hood of their car, and I started kicking their windshield in. I said, if you're so tough and you want to call me a moron, let's handle it like men.
Right.
So I've been down that road, trust me.
Right.
And I got reprimanded from Whitey Bulger about it.
Yeah.
Of course.
What did he say?
He said you shouldn't be doing that. He's, and all that good stuff. But at the same time, that he's a whole different monster,
right,
if you will.
Right.
But he was playing both sides. So
yeah.
At the time, but I get where you're coming from. So please keep going.
Yeah. A lot of those things you don't realize until it's over. It's kind of crazy. So we're playing all these games, and I do realize at some point in time, I'm like, this is probably not sustainable. Like I gotta get out of this state and move. So I remember I was at one of my spots, and I called my buddy and I said, hey man, do you want a free TV, Xbox, furniture? Like you could have everything, right? So I remember I'm rolling up a joint, and all of a sudden I just hear a knock on the door, a bang, and I'm expecting it's gonna be him. But before I could even open the door, they kicked the door in and tackled me to the ground. My laptop was open, so they got my laptop. Luckily at this point in time, I actually didn't have a whole lot of illicit stuff at the spot, so I was actually in a really favorable position. So they did get a few Bibles of LSD, they got some cash, and they got a little bit of weed.
Sure.
And then, they asked me.
The weed you didn't have to worry about.
Yeah, I wasn't even worried about that.
Unless it's a big amount, you didn't have to worry about it.
Right. And then they asked, hey, could we search the art gallery? And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. I didn't ever keep anything there. Unbeknownst to me, one of the guys that I had brought into my life that was selling directly to the feds pretty much set me up and planted even more drugs at the art gallery, right?
Yeah, they had it planned.
Yeah.
They planned all this. They set you up.
They had it planned.
Yeah, and they used that rat to do it.
They did.
And that's what they do. They use these rats to set people up to justify their job. So they took a rat to take evidence, to plant it in your place,
right,
to justify their job, to make sure they get a total conviction and to give you more time on that. You know how disrespectful and disgusting that is?
It is.
I can't even tell you. And it happens every day. It happens every day, and the public should know about this. It happens all the time. And I don't care what any law enforcement says, it happens.
Yeah, and the cops are just as bad, It's just people trying to protect themselves because they don't want to take
they're
accountability.
justifying their jobs. If they're they got a rat coming in, and he's planting something in your place, in your business, that you don't even know about. Their rat is planning it. Drugs. They're justifying their job.
Right.
And they're looking for that feather in their cap and saying, look what we got them for all this drugs.
Right. Right.
You know what that is to me? You want to know what that is to me?
It's disgraceful, among many other things.
It's not just disgraceful. They're scumbags to do something like that. Where is their integrity? Their integrity is to uphold the law, and I get that, and I respect that. I respect that. You're on that side, that's fine. That's fine. But to plant something on a guy to make sure you can get a conviction because your rat did that?
Right.
Fuck you. Fuck you.
Yeah. No, it caught me off guard. I remember when they said, oh, well, they were showing me photos, look what we found there. But this is where things got interesting, was I was so high that I forgot one of the substances I used to sell was a drug called 25I-NBOME, right? It's a synthetic that's very similar to LSD. So I thought I had all the LSD on me, but I had all the research chemicals, right? So this really played well in my favor because at that point in time, nobody had been convicted of this drug yet. So there was a law that was passed, I want to say it was like a few months prior to me getting arrested, and it was called the Analog Act. And essentially the DEA has to go through a set of procedures to schedule and make something illegal before Congress can actually pass a law, which is super messed up, right? So they could say, yo, this is illegal, we're going to arrest you on it, but Congress has 2 years to, actually make the law. And
let me. I don't like to talk about politics.
Right.
And I'm glad you brought this up. I don't like to talk about politics. I do not. But I'm going to tell you something. These politicians, they suck on both sides of the aisle.
They do.
Both sides of the aisle suck. And I'm tired of them. And a lot of Americans are tired of them because of the issues and the way they carry themselves. They're all protected. The majority of them are all protected. They make sure they're protected. But when it comes to the folks that put them in office, they're always ramming it up their ass. And I'm tired of that. And a lot of other Americans are tired about that.
I mean, they're bigger criminals than we were. I mean, they go into Congress with
How do
like
you go
$1 million, leave with $70 million.
Exactly.
Like,
how do you go into Congress with $100,000 or $50,000 or $20,000 in your bank account, but you leave Congress with millions of dollars? How does that happen? I want to know. I want you to tell us, the American people, how. Because you're fucking guys like this.
Right. It's a messed up game. It's a messed up game. So they find these.
It's a rat. That's a rat to me. That is a rat, and it's a rat game. They're rats. They're rats, and that's the bottom line of it. And you know what, my friend? I'm sorry that happened to you.
You know, it's all right. That's part of the process when you're in there for so long is I just stopped focusing on it. But, I mean, it gets worse. It gets worse, Red. It really does. And it's actually my fault. So I go to jail. I'm in there for like 3 months, and they offer me pretrial because I was a first-time offender. They only caught me with research chemicals. And, so they say, okay, you have to go to the federal halfway house, right? So I was in the federal halfway house, and me being young and dumb, a lot of these guys saw me on the news. They're like, oh, yeah, you're Brett. You were the one that was buying and selling all the stuff on the dark web. Like, hook me up. And I'm like, I don't know you. I don't know you. So they're asking me, because I was in there for a few months every day. Red. I started selling to the guys in the halfway house, man. God. It was these guys that were in there
I wish I was there. I would have said, Brett, come here. I would have pulled you to the side. I would have said, do not. They're trying to set you up again.
So, and that's what happened because they didn't have a good case on me in the beginning. So I'm 20. You got a lot of these guys that are way older than me. that just did 15 years. Some of them were just straight rats and they got out early and maybe they're still working with them. So,
oh, you can guarantee those motherfuckers are still working with them.
Yeah.
They were still working with you. Can guarantee you. I can't even tell you, and I'm saying this on this program now, I can't even tell you how many rats that the government has on their side. FBI, DEA, state police. I can't even tell you. They have plenty of them. And anyone that thinks that they can get into this game of crime and selling, you know, what we did or whatever, or even committing any crime or doing crime, guess what? It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time because those rats are working and working and working to make sure you don't know that it's them because they're trying to protect themselves, and then they're coming in for the swoop.
yeah.
The deck is stacked against you. How are you going to win with all these informants, the confidential informants? There's no way. There's no way you can win.
can't.
I'm telling you right now. And listen, I know there was a lot of guys out there that are still doing things or whatever, most likely. But I'm telling you guys right now, be careful because that CI is near you somewhere. That CI is sitting somewhere. You might think that you know who that CI is and you can circumvent around that CI. Guess what? You ain't getting around him. You're not.
You're not. And you know, it's funny on social media, sometimes people will be like, you know, oh, he was just dumb. I'm too smart to get caught. No, you're not. On top of that, when you get arrested, the amount of pressure that they put on people, I always felt that sometimes it was like the most gangster people from a physical appearance. Like it would always be the guys with the most face tattoos and they're in this gang and this. They were the first to rat. Always. And I saw that a lot in prison. I was like, what? This is
you know who I
crazy.
am? I bet they said, you know who I am? This is who I am.
Yeah.
Big tough guy, right?
Always. Always.
Yeah.
So Red, so
I got 25 notches on my
Yeah.
fucking belt, but, you know, but yet I just ratted on fucking 30 people, or 20 people, or 10 people, or 5 people. But I'm still a fucking tough guy. I'm still a tough. You lost that fucking badge when you became a rat and when you decided to go with the government and be a CI to protect your ass so you don't go away to fucking prison for multiple years.
right.
I'm tired of these people, and I'm glad you're bringing this up. I'm tired of these damn bastards. And anyone else that associates with these people, they're not friends of mine. They'll never be friends of mine. And anybody who praises these people like a Sammy the Bull, well, guess what? If he ratted on that guy that he was supposed to not rat on, and he took an oath, just like all of us do in that type of organization, you take an oath. There's an oath that you take. And if you don't oblige by that oath, then who are you? You're a rat. You're a rat.
Right.
And you'll always be a rat. And that badge or those bars that you shouldered, they're all gone once you become a rat. Once you decide to go with that FBI agent or that DEA agent, you're no fucking good.
It's over with.
It's over with, brother.
It's over with.
But it's guys like you that stood the test.
Yeah, so
That weren't even big gangsters.
right.
That weren't even big men. And, you know, I killed 25 bodies. I killed 25 people in the world. Yeah, so be the fucking man you should be then.
Right.
Accept your responsibility.
Yeah, so I mean, the short version, Red, is I started to try to debt collect. You know, I was really mad about how everything went down, so I got a 9mm Beretta. I got a 33 round extended clip, and I just started debt collecting.
I love
I
that.
started debt collecting.
Fuck.
I started going to my storage units and
Someone
trying to
owes you
liquidate
money
everything.
and they don't want to fucking pay you, especially if they think you're in trouble. They're trying to cheat you out of it. Fuck him. I ain't paying him. He's in trouble. I ain't. Fuck him. Let him go to jail.
Yeah.
Well, guess what?
Right.
Fuck you. You owe me money, and you're not going to fucking beat me for it. you're going to get your money and you're going to collect it like any other merchant would in this world.
And to speak on this entire topic, this is how petty it was when they sealed the deal on me. Was that I reached a point, my lawyer was calling me nonstop. He's like, Brett, look, I've been talking to your dad. You're not acting right. Just come to my office. We're going to end your pretrial. Let's just get you sentenced, go to prison, and just get this over with. So, we talked about it. I'm like, okay. So I started taking everything I had and I put it in the trunk of my car. And I had one more debt to collect. It was one of my good friends. He didn't want to meet with me, so he sent his girlfriend. And his girlfriend is being super shady. She wants to know an exact time, an exact place, all this stuff. I'm like, this is weird. This is weird. So I ended up going to this restaurant. Actually, I brought one of my friends with me, and he was actually celebrating his sobriety. So looking back at it, I wasn't really being a good friend to him because the car is loaded. I'm going to another storage unit, and I was just going to put everything in there and just figure it out once I got out. But I was like, I'm going to hit this one play, collect this last little payment before I go there. So I'm in the restaurant. She comes in. She hands me an envelope of cash. I'm like, cool. I walk out the door. But while I'm in the restaurant, I knew something is weird right away. Because when they go to sit us down, the restaurant was mostly empty, but they wanted to sit us right next down to these 4 group of guys.
Yeah, of course.
They were looking weird. The waitress, when she asked for my ID, I pull out a giant wad of cash. Usually, this was like a Twin Peaks. They're supposed to flirt with you. Why aren't you flirting with me? Right? Why are all the waitresses looking at me kind of weird? It was the eeriest vibe. I said, this is not good. So I literally just threw some money on the table and I just tried to hurry out the door. As soon as I walked out the door, at the very end of the parking lot, lights turn on. Other side of the parking lot, lights turn on. SUVs pull in. They jump out of their car with their rifles. Booker, get on the fucking ground. And I'm like, oh, damn. So I run. I'm like, no way. Like, my car is loaded. I just got to run.
Yeah, fuck them.
But they tackled me.
Yeah.
Beat the shit out of me. I actually went to jail in crutches, And at that point in time.
How many were there?
Probably like 15.
15 to 1.
Yeah.
You feel like a real champion, 15 to 1.
Yeah.
How about 1-on-1?
Yeah.
Show you real manhood.
Yeah.
You want to show real manhood? How about 1-on-1? This fucking 15 to 1 shit is fucking ridiculous. I've been there. Trust me.
Yeah.
I've been there.
So they asked me straight up, can we search your car? At that point in time, I said, look, I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, it was Thanksgiving Eve. My grandma, my grandpa were visiting my brother. I had a lot of family in town. So I was thinking, well, look, I want to work out a deal. But not the kind of deal you're going to think of, Red. I said, look, I'll let you search my car. You won't need a warrant. I just have one favor to ask. Let me call my grandma and let me say goodbye. That's it. That's all I want. I don't even care how much time you give me. Because they're like, we're going to give you 20 years. I said, I don't care. I'm young.
They're
I'm
not
20.
the fucking prosecutor. They're not you. They're
Yeah.
not the prosecutor. They don't make the fucking decision. They're fucking cops arresting you and just
Right.
fucking doing their
Well, no,
job
they were
what
like-
they're supposed to do or supposed to do. They're not the fucking prosecutor. They don't make the fucking rules.
But they were working. Like I said, they
This
wanted
shit pisses
to
me off.
seal a stronger case on me, and I bit the bait. Right, I bit all the bait. I fell for the whole trick. So, they were talking to the prosecutor, like, the prosecutor's going to give you 20 years minimum. I'm like, man, fuck you. All I want to see is my grandma, right? So I remember they drove me down to one of my houses. We're there in the basement. There's 7 DEA agents. They have all my safes open, and they're just counting cash on the table. Because I told them, I said, I don't trust you guys. Last time I got arrested, I know how much money I had, and what you reported did not match. You guys are corrupt pieces of shit. I want to see you count every last fucking dollar, right? So it was an eerie scene. They let my family come. My dad comes down in the basement with my brother, and I'm looking at my dad. I'm looking at these agents. They're counting all this money, and I'm like, damn. It kind of hit me in that moment for the first time, like, dude, what the fuck? This sucks. So then I look at him. I said, man, fuck you. I said, you know what? I don't even care about the money. Take me to jail. Because at that point, Red, I could not face my grandma, right? My grandma has always been very important to me in my life. And I was like, I can't face her, dude. There's no way she's coming downstairs and seeing all this. I said, fuck the money. I said, take me to jail. I'm ready to take me to jail. So, you know, they put the chain around my waist, they connect the handcuffs to the chain, they put the shackles on me, which is way overboard. That's usually for transport, not an arrest.
Exactly.
Right? So they do like the full show, and they're walking me out the front door, and I'll never forget this, Red. My grandma was screaming, "No, Bredders, no, don't take him. Don't take him." I couldn't look her in the eye, man. And I'll be honest with you, man, my grandma's voice haunted me for many, many years, and it's part of the reason that I decided I had to change. Now, what I didn't know behind the scenes, and this just tells you, especially for anybody watching, you don't understand the loyalties that some people have to people, right? So when I'm arrested, I didn't even know this was happening, but some of my, what I called my young hustlers, because I used to always identify kids that were younger than me, I'd put them on and they would sell for me. That girl that set me up, who only got caught with one pill and decided to be like, oh, I know the biggest plug in the city because I was friends with her boyfriend, she was the one who really sparked a lot of that, right? Well, my friend shot up her house, shot up her car, shot up her grandma's house. I didn't ask him to do that. I didn't find that out until months later because she had to leave the state because she was so scared for her life. But some people don't understand that the street life is real, and there's unintended consequences for everything you do. The consequences for me selling all those drugs was, I got 11 and a half years in the feds. But for people that decide to cooperate, you think everything is good because you're trying to save your own ass. But sometimes you're going to have crazy motherfuckers who have loyalty to someone like me, and they're going to decide to take things into their own hands. I didn't tell them to do anything. I didn't motivate them. They wanted to do that because they were so mad on my behalf. You know?
I want to say this. I'm going to call that loyalty.
Yeah.
I'm going to call that loyalty. 100%. We need more people like that next to us. Yeah. I fucking love that.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody thinks. If I get in trouble because that son of a bitch ratted on me because they got caught for something, and they said, "Oh, I got someone I can tell on to take that weight off of my shoulders." Well, if those consequences come back at you, guess what? Too fucking bad. You fucking deserve it.
And what some people like that don't understand is that take the charge. Take the charge. Get a lawyer. Okay? Things are never as bad as you think they are. Especially for her. She might have been facing probation, something like that. And then as soon as that whistle went off, the feds get notified. They're already watching me. They combine it with what they're already building on me to seal the deal. And it was game over. But little does she know, she could have warned me. I would have given her a fat reward. She would have had a lot of money in her pocket. She wouldn't have nothing to worry about. She would have been put on probation.
And you would have respected her stance. Her stance in being loyal and a strong individual and saying, they wanted me to cooperate, they wanted me to do this, but I wouldn't do it. I'm letting you know now, this is where I'm at. I need a little help with a lawyer to help me. And you would have been like, fuck it. Abso-fucking-lutely.
Right.
And whatever else you need. But she decided immediately, fuck. For a small thing like this, I'm going to sell this guy out and watch him get hit hard no matter how hard he gets hit. She didn't give a fuck. She only cared about herself. And you know what? She knew what she was doing, though, didn't she?
Oh, yeah.
She knew exactly the game she was in. But yet, when she came time to face the music, this is my out. I'm going to give up, Brett.
Yeah. And you highlighted it. Loyalty was always a big thing for me when I was younger. I had one friend, I remember his name, Preston, right? He had trouble paying his college tuition. I gave him about $50,000 in ones and fives, right? So I was making a joke about it.
15,000?
No, 50.
Oh, 50,000 in ones and fives?
In ones and fives and tens.
Make it a dough.
Small bills, right?
How the fuck do you get all that? And what, you need 2 duffel bags for that.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, Jesus Christ.
It was a lot. It was a lot, right? Because I would always take the small bills and I'd put them aside,
So
right?
why did you do that?
Because I felt bad for him. He was a smart kid.
Yeah, but why did you do 1s and 5s?
Because I used to think they were bitch bills, and I didn't like them. You know, I was like really weird about, like, I like 20s, 50s, and 100s, but the small bills, they're just kind of difficult to get them because then you have to go to a bank and get them exchanged, and it's just a hassle.
So you just want to
right?
get rid of the small bills.
Right, and I was doing a
And
good
you
deed.
had plenty of them.
And I was doing a good deed, right?
And you were doing a good deed.
I was doing a good
now
deed.
I get it. Now I
Right.
get it.
So he goes to college, but when I give it to him, I'm being a jokester. Like, I've never taken life too seriously. I'm like, here you go, bro. All in bitch bills, right? And unbeknownst to me, he took that personally, right?
Could I?
And I'm like, so he ghosts me. Completely, he ghosts me.
After you gave him 50 grand
After I give him 50 grand.
in bitch bills.
Right. So I end up going, this was at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. So I get a taser, I get zip ties, I get duct tape, I get a machete. I couldn't sleep. Honestly, it wasn't even about the money. I didn't care about the money. It was the fact that he was a good friend of mine and he was going to end a friendship over a little bit of money. I would have respected him so much if he just said, Brett, you know what? I'm sorry. I can't pay you. Okay, cool. Whatever. Life goes on. Life is not easy, right? So I'll never forget.
Exactly.
I'm parked outside of his frat house waiting with my homie. And I just know as soon as he walks out, we're going to tase him. Then we're going to zip tie him. We're going to throw him in the trunk. I don't know what we're going to do with him. I've never taken it that far, but I was just so angry, right? And then I hear a knock on the door, and it's a police officer. So I remember I take my hat off, I throw it in the back, and I was wearing a jacket. Because in the back, if she just looked in the back, she would see a taser and zip ties and duct tape. I take the jacket off. Now, mind you, this was when I was on pretrial. This is when I was debt collecting. I was in that debt collecting phase. He was one of the debts. Because I'm like, all you people that forgot about me, you thought I was just going to go to prison for a long time. I'm out right now. I'm coming for everybody, you know? So I take my jacket off, just kind of like all in one like motion, so she can't really recognize it. And then I roll down the window. I'm like, hey, how you doing, ma'am? She's like, oh, you're not supposed to park here. What are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm just waiting for my friend. She's like, let me see your license, right? So I hand her my license. She goes back to the car. And then she comes back. She's like, okay, you're free to go. But still, that experience right there never sat well with me. And I think because maybe when she ran my name, maybe I popped up that the feds were still building that case on me that she didn't investigate further. But that saved Preston. Preston, that saved you, because that would have been something I maybe not have been able to ever return from, because I was so laser focused on, you broke my trust, you destroyed our friendship, I am going to hurt you, you know?
Yeah, I get you. And, you know, I get the feeling in your heart.
Yeah.
You know, when you give your word to someone, and they not just your word, but your actions and loyalty, and they don't give it back. I get that. But let me just touch upon the part about how the officer
Right.
took your license, and you said they possibly ran my name, and, you know, she did definitely run everything. And there was probably a tag there, a red flag there saying, do not let this guy keep doing what he's doing, leave him alone, because we're on him.
It had to be red, because I'm telling
right
you, when
now,
I was thinking about it.
This is what they do.
Yeah.
This is a tactic that they do. It's happened to me. Oh, you're good to go. You're all set, Mr. Shea. Oh, yeah. And I laughed. The only reason is because I know that the feds are saying, leave him alone. Let him keep going. This is only a small thing going on right here. Let him keep going, because the further he keeps going, the bigger it's going to be for us.
Right.
So they have that tactic. Don't get, you were right. You were absolutely right about that.
It didn't make sense, because if she looked in the back seat, it would have been game over. Like, why would you need all that stuff in the back seat?
They didn't want that.
you know?
They wanted you to keep going.
But it was Preston's lucky day, if you're watching this. No, I was kidding. I'm over that. But so then, yeah, fast forward, you know, kind of like we talked about before we hopped on the podcast today. You know, they gave me 11 and a half years, and that journey took me between about 10 institutions in 8 states. You know, good old diesel therapy, Con Air, bus rides. I'm sure you know all about that yourself.
Because they wanted you to cooperate and everything else, and you wouldn't.
Right. Right. So I'll never forget, I started at Leavenworth. And for me, you know, they call it United States Penitentiary Leavenworth. It's technically a medium. And you could tell in conversation, like sometimes guys.
It's a big transit prison.
Yeah, I hear it is now.
Yeah, they transport
Right.
a lot of prisoners come and go throughout there. They transport through there also at the same time. Yes, there were guys doing time there that are doing a lot of years, but it's a transit prison also.
Right. Especially recently, I heard that I don't think they even have guys really staying there full time.
Yeah, I heard that recently.
Yeah. So I remember I got there, and, you know, that was my first prison I was ever at. And it was pretty intimidating. You know, they got the 20-foot brick walls. And I remember I was in a booking, but they don't call it booking, receiving?
Yep.
R&D.
R&D.
I almost forgot what it was.
I know it well.
R&D. I should know well after all the R&Ds
Yeah,
I've been through. And I remember there was this one guy I was watching, and to me, he was like the guy that I was going to emulate, because I've always been the kind of person where I don't like to put myself front and center. I kind of like to step back and just observe, right? Because this is all foreign to me. I don't know what's going on. I just want to sit back, observe, like learn the rules, like how's everybody getting down, and then make decisions from there. So I figured, okay, this is going to be the guy that I'm going to emulate, because he seemed to be able to talk to everybody. People respected him. He had a lot of tattoos. So, you know, they process us. We get to our unit. We were in A2. So we go up there. He happened to be on the same unit as me. And I remember I walk up to the first cell, and it was like, that's the cell the guard told me to go to. And it was a tall black dude there, and he's just standing right in front of the door. I'm like, hey, man, I'm Brett. Nice to meet you, man. I guess we're cell. He's like, no, we're not. I said, excuse me? Like it says it right here. He's like, nah, go find your people. So that was my first time, like, learning that. Wait, what? Like, go find my people. So I'm walking around. I find my people. I find the unit rep for the car that I was in, and we go into a cell. And I'll never forget this, too. This was another testing moment for me, because I didn't know what to expect. I remember I walk in the cell. He has 2 of his buddies on the bunk, and one of these dudes is just going to town on a lollipop, right? Just in a very homosexual way, right? And then he looks up at me, and he's like, have you ever sucked dick before, boy? And at that moment, I'm like, oh, this is the test. This is the test. This is where I just fight him. So I'm getting ready to swing back and just take off on him. And the unit rep kind of saw everything happen in motion. He kind of grabs me, and he's like, hey, whoa, get the fuck out of here, dude. It was just a joke. But I was new to that. I thought this was real. Like, you don't play those kind of jokes. So he's giving me the rundown of how the politics work at Leavenworth. And he's like, you know, we give everybody 30 days to get their paperwork. You have to get your paperwork from the clerk of court. You can't get it from your lawyer. If you get it from your lawyer might make adjustments to the paperwork. We'll go with you to the law library to print off the labels, make the request, put the stamp on it, and drop it in the mailbox.
So your PSI.
Yeah, PSI, sentencing transcripts, and docket, right? So those key 3 items. And as he's running me through the process, I'm like, no problem, dude. Like let's get this handled, man. And I remember there was a knock at the door, and he's like, hey, come here. All white boys to the top of the tier. All white boys to the top of the tier. So I'm like, okay, what's going on? So we go up to the top of the tier, and I'm looking straight ahead, and then there's a cell door open, and sitting on the toilet at the back of the cell is that guy that I saw in R&D. I'm like, okay, what's going on
So
here?
R&D, just for the people to know, it's receiving and dispatch.
Correct, receiving and dispatch. So he looks over at me, and he's like, Booker, man, this is what happens at Leavenworth if you don't get your paperwork or you're a rat. This is your one opportunity to go to that guard right there and check in. And I'm like, I'm not checking in. I'm not doing that. He's like, okay. And then just at that moment, 2 guys came around the tier, and they pretty much took their beanies and they cut out like a hole for the eyes and the mouth. They had that over their face. They had workout gloves on that they get from CMS, which stands for Compound Maintenance Services.
Were they orange?
These weren't orange. They were all black and gray.
No, the beanies.
Oh, no. They were gray.
Gray, okay.
They were gray. They had their entire bodies covered, especially because of the way that the cameras were set up. So anyway, they run up into the cell and they just start beating the shit out of him, right? And he's trying to get out, and he's like, whoa, what the hell, man? And they're beating him up down the stairs. He gets hit, falls down the stairs, and then they run off after he runs up to the guard. And they say, lockdown. And then, they come and they go cell by cell and they do the body checks. Show me your hands. Are your knuckles okay? Show me your body. Do you have any bruising? They didn't get anybody. In fact, we were only on lockdown for like an hour. Then they opened it up and it was business as usual. But unbeknownst to me, I guess he was a bail bondsman. And what they didn't like about that in particular was that he was playing both sides. Not only was he working with the courts to go arrest you if you violate your terms of bond, but he's also robbing drug dealers, selling drugs. And some of the guys that were in there, literally, he was the bail bondsman that they got bond from 10, 15 years ago.
So what you reap, you sow. What you sow, you reap, I should say.
Yeah, and that's one example of many when I was in prison where I would just be like, damn, you have no idea. The consequences will always come, but when you least expect it. You could do something from 10, 15 years ago and think, oh, I'm good, I made it out. No. The consequences will always come for you.
That's why it's absolutely, most importantly, to always maintain your integrity.
Agreed.
And that's what you were looking at all that time when you were going through your time. You just said it. That's integrity. You knew that if you didn't have that integrity back then, that it would come up and bite you in the ass if you did not show or have that integrity.
Yeah, and I remember there was a valuable lesson I learned from Joe Pistone, and he would always pronounce his name Pistone because I guess there was a Pistone who was an FBI rat.
Yes.
And he's from New York, I believe.
New York, the Johnny Depp movie, yep.
Yeah, but this Joe Pistone, he was a part of the Gambino crime family.
Yep.
And early on, he told me, he's like, Brett, it's always about your jacket and who you have pulling for you. I had no idea what that meant at first. And then I quickly learned the jacket is, especially in the feds, your reputation is everything, right? You can't escape it. If you're a dope fiend, you run up drug debts, you're a liar, you're a thief, you might get shipped to another federal prison halfway across the country, but that's going to catch up with you. People are going to find out real quick over there because we're all in communication. Everybody has cell phones nowadays.
Through the grapevine.
Through the grapevine. And then the who's pulling for you, that's what I learned, unfortunately, is that even the politics at these different prisons, sometimes you think someone is good, but no, the shot caller just liked him and let the rat slide because he's pulling for him. And that was another part of the prison culture and the politics I didn't like, is that it seemed like it was a popularity contest sometimes. It's who's pulling for you, not necessarily who you are and what you did.
Yeah, I ran into that problem while I was doing my time. I had a guy who was he was a good guy in that way, if you will, as a nice guy, and I had no idea about what happened with who he was exactly. And a guy walked up to me out of the clear blue. I was in Milan, Michigan.
Okay, Milan, yeah.
And he walks up to me, and Milan, they had lifers there.
Mm-hmm.
They had people doing, many years there as well. And the guy walked up to me and he says, hey, Red, I know who you are. Your reputation is impeccable. I just want you to know the guy you're walking with, the older guy. I said, yeah, the guy Joe. Yeah, what about him? He's a rat. I said, are you shitting me? I said, I just introduced him to friends of mine that I know from out in the street.
Right.
I said, are you fucking kidding me? He was an older man. What happened was he did time before, and he held his water. But this particular time, and I talk about it in my book, Rat Bastards, this particular time, he had his son involved. And his wife said to him, your son cannot go to prison like you have. Our son can't go to prison. You brought him into this. You need to fix this and fix it fast. So he decided to be a rat. And he didn't want to be. He didn't want to be. The old man didn't want to be. He figured he could get through and slide through without anybody knowing about it.
You can't.
You can't.
Everything
and to your
comes
point,
out.
you can't. And that's to your point, you can't. So at that point, I grabbed him. I said, Joe, I need to talk to you. Joe, this is what I heard. I need to know. He started to cry in prison. He started to cry and tell me, yes, it's true. I said, Joe, usually I'd get physical about that. But because he was an old man, I gave him a break. I took sympathy on that. I told him, Joe, do you realize the position that you were putting me in as a fucking stand-up guy? Do you realize that? Johnny, I'm so sorry. I said, no, you knew. That's why you attached yourself to me in prison, because you knew the reputation I had. You knew that if you walked with me, you were going to be respected. Well, guess what, Joe? Everyone that I introduced you to here, now I have to tell them, you're a rat. You're no fucking good. He said, I only did it for my son. I did it because he told me the story.
They think that makes a difference.
And I said to him, I'm sorry, Joe. I said, Joe, I'm not going to hurt you because that's what it calls for. And you know that in prison.
Right.
You know that's what it calls for. I'm not going to hurt you. But you're not to talk to me. You're not to look at me. And I'm letting everybody in the fucking prison know what you've done. I have to do that because you put me in a bad predicament. He started crying. He said, I'm sorry. He apologized to me and cried. Man, I'm like, how does an individual get to this point in life? How? How does the feds put an individual in this position in life?
You know, I think sometimes, Red, the better question even can be, everybody knows the consequences of your actions when you start to commit crime and you go that way.
1,000%.
So if you understand the rules of engagement, you got to understand, you got to be 10 toes down
he
when
knew,
it comes.
he knew because he did another bit before that and never ratted. So he knew. He was just trying to skate by, and he saved his son's ass because of it. I mean, you know, I don't know. I wouldn't have done that, you know. I would have said to my son, and I would have told my wife, we're both going down. That's the way it's got to go, and that's the end of it. I'm sorry. But that would have never happened with me if I had a son. That would have never happened, because I would have never brought my son into that world that I was doing.
Right.
I would have never sacrificed my son to that fucking life. He was selfish. He was selfish. But I paid mercy on him. I gave him mercy. And he had to walk that yard, and he lost all his friends in prison. Every fucking one of them he lost. Every one of them. He walked every day like a broken man in misery. And I told other people, you do not touch him. You let him walk in misery. That was more of harm than touching him. It really was. He had to walk that road alone with his head down every day as a snitch, as a rat.
Yeah. And I will say this, especially for all the viewers, I feel like what they really need to understand when you and I are talking about rats, when we're talking about integrity, is that the man who doesn't snitch goes in there, goes through a long period of self-reflection, really invests in their personal growth and their self-development, thinks deeply about what type of impact they want to have on the world when they get out. That's the true definition of a man who stood 10 toes down and did what he had to do. The individuals that rat, a lot of times why we have animosity towards them is because they symbolize the type of person that will stab everybody in the back to get their way. So inherently, if that is in their psychology, just because they get less time and once they return to society, chances are they're going to respond with that same type of energy and commitment to everything else they do moving forward. And that's truly what a rat symbolizes. Like, when I think about my time in there, one thing you always have to consider is that everybody can see what you're doing all the time. We know when you're getting up. We know if you gamble. We know if you get high. We know what you do with your time. So guys will respect you when they see you. Oh, he's getting up early every day. He's hitting the yard. He's hitting the weight pile. I always see him reading books. And he's a stand-up dude. And he's doing what he needs to do. And to me, that's always been the epitome of what I wanted to chase and what I wanted to represent. Was like, okay, yeah, I decided to go down this path. I took that 11 and a half years that the feds gave me, but I made the most of it every single day by day, brick by brick. I feel like that's something you could resonate with Wells, right?
You did your time like a man.
Right.
You did every hour, every second behind those walls and behind those doors and those bars like a man. And that is why I'm so grateful to have you on this show today, because you show grit and integrity. For the wrongs you did, you accepted full responsibility without putting it on someone else's shoulders. This is what this show is about. This is what it's about.
Agreed. And it's about defending that jacket. I mean, I shared a brief story with you, when I was at a federal prison in Mendota, I definitely got involved in the cell phones and, we would jump the fence, run to the highway, bring in 20 boxes of Little Caesars, Nike jumpsuits, pounds of tobacco, vape pens, weed, everything, and throw it over the fence. Now, part of me always had a little bit of friction within me because I was trying to be on the right path, but also wanted to have fun, right? So during the day, I would complete my college courses, I would work out, I would do that. At night, I do these other things. But ultimately, I did get caught for that. They caught me with 2 iPhones, and I go to solitary. And I'm in the SHU, and I was in Mendota, so how it worked there, this was after Jeffrey Epstein hung himself, so they made a new rule where you can't be housed alone. But the politics at Mendota were like, if you're white, you only sell up with white guys. If you're Paisa, this was also a Norteño yard, right? So the whites aren't selling up with the Norteños, and we're not selling up with the blacks. So I sold up by myself. And I was in there for quite a while. And then you add the transit and everything else, it was over a year. And I'll never forget when I got to the next prison. I was there. I was pretty proud. I knew what had to be done. I entered prison very green, but I picked up all the little things that you have to do going forward. And one of them was when you go to the SHU, you get your DHO report. And the DHO report and your shots and everything pretty much shows you, it's a transcript. This is what you got in trouble with. You were under investigation for this. What did you say at the DHO hearing? Like, we want to know, because I was a man of integrity. I knew that I got in trouble for those cell phones. I'm not going to just tell on everybody. I didn't do it when I got arrested. Why am I going to do it now?
Sure.
And get all of my buddies that made it smooth and didn't have any repercussions. They can continue to do what they're doing.
Sure.
That's on them. But I was on the weight pile at the next yard, and I did have 3 Serenios come up to me. And they said, hey, Booker, man, our boy is saying that you told on him. I said, oh, really? Really? I have my DHO report. I have my shots. I have everything. When do you want to see it? And I remember I was shaking a little bit because, I know that's usually when I'm about time, like, oh, I'm expecting something. I remember I grabbed a little 10-pound weight, and I'm just thinking, like, if they attack me, I need a leg up to a degree. I'm going to hit one of them with this weight. But like, all right, we'll check out the paperwork. We'll check out the paperwork. Now, shortly after I got out, there actually was a riot in that same weight pile, in that weight room between the Pisces and the Serenios. But the following day, I bring them out all the paperwork. They read it, and they're like, damn, you're right. And then they go on to tell me, like, oh, yeah, when we were at Terminal Island with him, he was always a liar, and he was this. So what happened? They sent word to Mendota, and he got reprimanded, They beat him up. That's what's crazy about the federal system. You have a jacket. You have a reputation. We could be in 2 prisons halfway across the country, and if you throw an accusation at someone, you better be prepared to come with the paperwork or
100%.
come with whatever.
But just to touch upon that, they come to you saying this to you, you prove your paperwork. Well, where the fuck is your paperwork, motherfucker? I'd say, I'm going to show you my paperwork. Where's your paperwork? I want to see. You want me to show mine? I don't have a problem with that. I want to see yours too.
Right.
Go fuck yourself. Because I can't trust you. I don't trust you. You don't trust me. I don't trust you. Right?
I had every right to do that, and a lot of people do take that approach. My approach was, I want to seal the deal as soon as possible.
So what I would have done, I would have said, yeah, I'll show you my paperwork, but as soon as I lay my paperwork down, you need to lay yours down. And if you don't, game on, motherfucker.
Right.
Game motherfucking
right.
on.
I'm going to tell you this, though, Red. At that point in time, when I was at Sandstone, I was in an important position because I started a reentry committee. I designed and taught over 25 courses. I started a Toastmasters club. I started a program called PASS, Prisoners as Teachers Helping Society. So it actually give me a furlough, and I would go out and speak to juvenile youth on probation. So at this point in time, for me, I was trying to balance being a stand-up white guy, doing what I have to do, but also being a positive source for good for the other guys.
Got it.
And honestly, it was extremely challenging because, I would teach these courses and there'd be guys.
You had to navigate.
Yeah.
You had to navigate as a man without putting yourself in another position where it would have, knocked you off course.
Right. And it wasn't even about, getting into an altercation and going to the SHU. That just happens, right? You can't control that. After that happens,
I lost all my good time in prison, so I already fucking know about that. I was in the hole every year, so.
Yeah, that happens. But I know in my situation, I was a leader for not only, other white guys, but for guys of all races and different cars because of the courses I taught. And I'm like, at the end of the day, I just want to have a positive impact on others, but don't get it twisted. I'm also a solid white boy. And that's, a lot of people, when they look at prison, it's hard for them to conceptualize, those politics, that structure. It is extremely hard to navigate that, Red, and I'm going to tell you why. Because if I went too far with, I'm Brett, I'm leading the reentry committee, I'm teaching courses, I'm helping people, some of my guys might take offense to that. Oh, what do you think? You're better than us now? Oh, you just think you're better? Right? And then on the flip side, if I just start doing everything that they want me to do, then I'm not going to be able to have the partnerships we need to be able to get furloughs and go out of the prison to go speak to these kids and speak at schools. I was literally speaking at high schools with my khaki uniform. It was incredibly challenging to balance that because you go too far either way and you piss off both camps.
Yeah, I know. I know exactly where you're coming from. So, and I'm going to tell you how I know that from experience in my time in prison. They had there was a recreational officer. Nice guy. His name was Mr. Golden. Nice guy. Guy was ripped, by the way. He was fucking in tremendous shape. And he taught a class to inmates, and it was basically a box aerobics class in prison with the stair stepper and all that. If people remember the stair stepper back in the day. And he left. But I was one of the guys, because I'm a boxer, former boxer and all that. So I was one of the guys that was right up my road in working out. And he would challenge you. I mean, this guy was in tremendous shape. He was a challenger, like a fighter, if you will. And he would challenge, go more, like almost like a boot camp. So I would be right up front. I'd make sure I challenge him every time we did this class. Well, this guy was leaving. He was leaving it all. He was leaving there, and somebody had to take the program over to help the other inmates, to keep the working out going over for the inmates, keep them strong and physically fit and mentally, in the right way. So I said, I wouldn't. I said to the head guy, I wouldn't mind doing that. I wouldn't mind taking over. So he said, yeah, no problem. But there was a officer who wanted to join me, and it would be a duel. So the two of us would teach a class. I went to the head person. I said, listen, I would love to do it. I asked you to do it. I can run it for the inmates, one inmate to another inmate, and one convict to another convict. But there's no fucking way I'm going to do it with that other officer standing next to me. There's no way. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to fucking collaborate with that officer. There's no way. So that is where I get what you're talking about. That's my point. By the way, that officer did not do the class. They were knocked out of it, and I did the class on my own to all the other inmates. So it was inmate on inmate.
Yeah, I mean, it gets complicated because even when you want to go talk to a CO at a lot of prisons, you have to go with your buddy. You can't just go talk to the CO alone. And sometimes I was really mission driven when I was in there, Red, because early on, I'll never forget. I was at Leavenworth, and I was looking around. I'm 20 years old. All these guys are 30 plus years older than me on their third, fourth, fifth prison bid. And I was just in my cell at night, and it was I finally had an epiphany. I'm like, dude, you are who you are becoming. You didn't just get here overnight. It was a slow bleed. It was a snowball that turned into an avalanche. And the only way that I'm going to change is start making positive daily decisions every single day that put me on a new path and a new trajectory. And I can say that did that for me. That's why usually when I talk to people, I'll say, yeah, I did 10 years in prison, but guess what? It was the best thing to ever happen to me.
Yeah, you learn a lot from that. But let me just ask you one thing. After going through all that and the adversity that you're going through, where are you at now?
Man, I'm in a really grateful position right now. So when I got out, I was in the halfway house for 6 months. Then I was on house arrest for 6 months, right? So when I got to the halfway house, you know, they wouldn't let you film inside of there. So I'd be like, hey, can I take out the trash? And I'd be shooting videos in the alley, in the back, in Garden Grove, California, right? And they'd give me a little pass to go to the gym, and I'd be filming content there. I started to apply for jobs, but with my charges, like money laundering and weapons charges, extended munitions, like nobody would hire me, even though I had the capability. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this social media thing work, no matter what, 10 toes down. And I got really lucky. The video that I posted of me walking out of Sandstone has gone on to do, between all the different platforms, over 400 million views.
Holy shit.
And it's me walking out of Sandstone.
I wish I took a picture of me walking out of the gates, or out of the doors, that's for sure.
That's the thing, Red.
That was brilliant on your behalf.
Well, Red, I planned all of this out. I have binders and just boxes and boxes. You know, when I was in prison, I wrote over 20 books. I published 2 of them. I got college degrees. And I plotted a lot of this because I had so much time to think. And I'm like, so even the caption I wrote to that video, I wrote 6 months before I got out. And then I called my dad and I coached him. I said, hey, make sure you're standing here and you film it from this angle and you say this.
You were producing.
Right, yeah. So then I'm in the halfway house. That video pops off. And, you know, like I said, nobody will hire me. So I'm like, what can I sell? What product or service can I sell that can give me some initial traction? And that was mindset coaching, right? So I was selling mindset coaching in the DMs. And then just fast forward to today, you know, I really milked the house arrest bracelet. I milked it to a T.
So
you know?
Today you're at a place that you're doing really well.
Yeah, so right now, you know, the main things I do is I have an AI startup, so I sell automations like voice AI inbound, outbound to small businesses. I have my Booker Brand Accelerator, so I work with small businesses to grow with organic content marketing. And what I'm really passionate about is I've been developing partnerships for a sobriety and identity shift app that actually hits the App Store in about 4 weeks.
How beautiful is that?
Yeah.
Come a long way through that adversity. Before we end this, through all the adversity that you've been through,
Okay.
what's the best advice that you could give someone?
I always say it's really simple. You are who you are becoming. People really forget how impactful the small daily habits that you have in your life are going to lead to who you are going to eventually become. So a lot of people take inventory of where they're at right now and they're not happy. Instead, really think just think deeply, visualize every detail of the man or woman that you want to become. How do they talk? How do they dress? Where do they work? How do they respond to adversity? Take a full inventory and start acting like that person today. Start acting as if you were that person already. And those habits, if you really live them with every ounce of your being every single day, just wait. A few months will pass, 6 months, a year, and you will become someone you no longer recognize in a very positive way.
Stick to the course.
Yes.
Well, Brett, I can't tell you how elated I am to have you on this program as a stand-up guy with integrity and through the adversity that you've been through, and to come out in a flourishing way from that back into society and giving back to society. Congratulations to you.
Thank you, Red. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the Red Shea Show of Integrity, because that's what you are, integrity.